Today, President Obama delivered his annual back-to-school address. Here's how he talked about teachers in this country.
Teachers are the men and women who might be working harder than just about anybody these days. They don't do it for a fancy office. They sure don't do it for the big salary. They do it for you. They do it because nothing gives them more satisfaction than seeing you learn.
Okay, so that's one way to talk about teachers. Here's another.
You're not compensating me for my education, and you're not compensating me for my experience.
Well, you know what? Then you don't have to do it.
We need to take on the teachers union once and for all, and we need to decide who is determining our children's future, who is running this place, them or us. I say it's us, and we got to go fight to do it now.
If you think that's a confrontational tone, then you should really see me when I'm pissed.
Republican darling Chris Christie is no friend to education. When it was time to balance New Jersey's budget, Chris Christie told to teachers to pay up. He tried to freeze their salaries and make them pay more into their benefits. When they said no, he said layoffs. Christie cut $820 million from the education budget while saying no to a plan to raise taxes on millionaires that could have provided another $637 million for education. Now, Chris Christie is just another member of the gang of GOP governors who like to balance their budgets by asking teachers and other union members to pay first, like Scott Walker in Wisconsin and John Kasich in Ohio, who have fought to restrict collective bargaining rights, cut benefits, and lay off teachers, all without bothering to raise taxes on the rich. Teachers are people who help to raise our children, teaching them to read, write, and become responsible citizens. But Republicans seem to think they're enemy number one. Joining me now, Chris Hayes, host of MSNBC's Up with Chris Hayes. He's also the editor-at-large at The Nation. You know, Chris, I don't talk much about my personal religion on the show, but I'm a preacher. I get up, I say my prayers in the morning. Get up Sundays to preach, and I say, Lord, show me a sign. I looked up, there you were on the screen.
We're trying to answer people's prayers. That's our mission. We're mission-focused enterprise.
Thank you for being with me tonight, and thank you for Saturday and Sunday morning. Quite
I'm glad
a show.
you're liking it.
Let me ask you this. What does Chris Christie, because I think he's been getting all this good puff from the media, but what does he have in common with the Governor Walker of Wisconsin and Kasich of Ohio?
I think, well, here's what I would say. He has the same vision in terms of how he thinks, first of all, what he wants to do in terms of balancing the state's budget as a kind of fiscal matter, but also his vision and sort of vilification of the public sector unions as the enemy of the citizens of the state. I mean, he wants to go out there and create this kind of strange form of class warfare in which he pits firemen and teachers and the police and state workers against the other citizens of the states of New Jersey, as if the two of them are in a tug of war over every tax dollar. Right. So that's very similar. What's different, I think, and in some ways the reason that he's doing better politically than Walker and Kasich is that he does not have one-party rule in New Jersey. And so he has not been able to pursue the most extreme parts of his agenda as they have in Wisconsin and Ohio.
Only because he can't.
Only because he can't, but that has saved him from himself. What you've seen in Wisconsin and Ohio was tremendous overreach, right? They tried to pass these bills that not only made cuts to pensions and cuts to pay and layoffs, but also changed the collective bargaining rights. Because Christie doesn't have the legislator on his side in New Jersey, he has pared his ambitions a little bit, and that actually, I think, ironically, has helped him politically.
Now, people get the misconception that teachers are just, running the economy in the ground. Let's look at what the average teacher makes, because the president made this point in his address today. The average starting salary is $39,000. The average ending salary after 25 years, $67,000. I mean, you're not talking about people that go into this to get rich.
No, and one of the things you see that, if you look across the board, if you look at some of the countries that have the best education systems and the best educational outcomes, they have teacher workforces that are highly unionized, but they're also very well compensated. I mean, they pay for quality at a certain level, and there's, I think, there's a misunderstanding here in the States of just how much we are actually paying our teachers. If you compare us to the other leading nations in the world, places like Finland and South Korea, we are not paying them comparably.
And then when we get into this issue, I remember when I started talking about education, people want to know why I was in it. But look at this. When you look at teachers at schools that serve more Latino and African-American students on an average, they make $2,500 less. I mean, teachers that go in the areas that need the most get an average less, and they are underappreciated and applauded and given the kind of recognition and undercompensated.
And I think part of that has to do with this crazy way that we fund schools in this country, which is that we do it through property taxes for local school and tax districts, and that has a lot to do with the legacy of segregation and racial animus and white flight that's happened in this country. But you also see something, which is that you have this racial disparity in the public school system, and people want to talk about the teachers as the cause of that racial disparity, but they are dealing with a system that is producing these racial disparities because of the war on drugs, because of disparate levels of poverty, and we don't talk about those inputs anymore. All we talk about are teachers. We don't talk about what is producing the kind of disparities that put kids where they are.
Well, the Judge Peter Doyen said when they came with the special master appointed by the New Jersey Supreme Court, he says that Christie's cuts were unfair to poor students. This is something that a finding came forth with. So we're not just making this up. And how they have demonized teaching and have cut funds to those areas where we need them the most is something that I don't know how we're letting them get away with.
Well, and the other thing is, that clip that went viral on YouTube where Chris Christie's on the stage and the woman, the teacher is sort of angrily complaining to him about his attacks on teachers. He says, well, you don't have to do it. And I always ask people this when we have this discussion about teachers and breaking the back of the teachers union. Is there some oversupply of teachers waiting out there that aren't teaching now that are going to rush in? It's not like there's this line out the door. Teaching is really hard. When I got out of college, I probably had a dozen friends who went into teaching, and I can tell you 10 years later, one of them is left. It is a hard job. And that's the fundamental reality of the situation. You can talk about how they're called and everything, but fine, you take them away, and who is going to come in and teach your kids?
Chris Hayes, thank you for your time tonight.